Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Today is March 8th. Welcome to the TED Show. We're at episode 134 today. I can't believe it. And I'm with Brittany Pilcher. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
All right. I haven't said your maiden name right yet, but we're going to get that right for Dad. With the Center for Independent Living. And we have had the best conversation talking about kids, talking about growing up, talking about what we do with our kids. She can't believe I have a 26-year-old. I love her for that. But let us know that you can hear us or see us, because there's a lot that we have to cover. I see Willow's on, and Ethel and Frank. Just give me a thumbs up that you can hear us and see us. Always my biggest nightmare. I had one guest who you could not hear or see, and so we did the entire episode, and it was just for nothing, unfortunately. So hey, Gert, thanks for tuning in. So you can hear us and see. Obviously, people can hear us and see us, or nobody would say anything. Somebody would be saying, "Hey, Ted, speak up." Korea, you're on. Can you hear us? See us? We got some thumbs. All right. So welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And so I have to tell a very sweet story. I don't see your dad on yet, but your dad. Oh, so we got here. There we go. Here we go. We got the hearts and stuff. I got this message, and it came in, and it was somebody I wasn't friends with, and it was Scott Lara. Did I say that right? And Scott is Brittany's dad, and he's like, Brittany's my daughter, and she's had a heart for accessibility and inclusion, I think were his words, since she was a kid, and I thought that was the sweetest message. And then he friended me so he could watch his baby girl come on the TED Show and talk about her passion. So welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, good. All right, so give us a little background on you, and we're going to get to the Center for Independent Living. We're going to talk about inclusion. We're going to talk about accessibility. But give us hey, Korea. Oh, you can hear us. Good. See, we got people listening.
Yes.
And John Howdy Shell's on too. Hey, John. Give us a little background on you. Now, you can't remember. We talked about it. You can't start with, I started at the Center for Independent Living. We want a background on Brittany.
So my background is I was born in Key West, Florida. So my dad was in the Navy and was stationed in Key West, Florida. And at the hospital, there was only 3 babies. I was the only girl, so my parents couldn't get me switched at birth. They like to joke about that.
That's funny.
Being born in, I know, they came home with the right baby. And being born in Key West, I am an official conch, is what they call it.
Very cool.
So we traveled around. My brother was born in North Carolina. We lived in Virginia Beach, New Jersey, and then ended up in Jacksonville, Florida, where my mom is from. And from there, I always had a passion for people with disabilities. In elementary school, I actually tutored a special education class, and that's where I think the passion for individuals with Down syndrome and autism really came into my life.
That's a lot it's a lot in general, but how amazing that you as a child knew that was a passion of yours, that you had a heart for that, and your dad totally confirmed that in the message to me. Do you remember thinking, okay, this isn't fair how they're treated? What was it about that particular population, the people with the challenges like that said, you know what, I want to get involved, I want to do something for them?
I think being in the classroom, seeing that all of them had such incredible hearts and their abilities. So, they were segmented into this classroom, but working with them individually, I could see their abilities and what they could do, and just showcasing that and giving them opportunities to really explore that and to work on just being a better person and living whatever life that they wanted to live. So the opportunities was a big thing for me.
I love that. So did you continue on after elementary school and continue to be involved? How did that evolve for you from having a passion for it as a child to actually getting to work in the industry and getting to help them as an adult?
So in college at the University of North Florida, I majored in communications, public relations, and didn't think I wanted to get in nonprofit at all. I wanted to do corporate or agency PR, and we actually had a speaker come talk about internships at nonprofits. So I took an internship with a nonprofit, and when I was about to graduate, I was doing interviews with corporates and agencies, and they said, what's your ideal job? And I found myself listing everything that I did and loved about a nonprofit. So it's kind of a light bulb, aha moment. Like, Brittany, you need to probably pursue a career in nonprofit, but more specifically, going back to elementary school, my heart for those with disabilities. So that's where I started with at the Muscular Dystrophy Association.
Oh, so you started with MD. That's interesting.
Yep, MDA.
So MDA, so how is that, how did it transpire? So what did you start out as? You obviously got a basic job. Were you into marketing? Were you into fundraising? Is that what you were doing initially?
Yes.
Because it's a difficult, if you haven't worked in nonprofits before,
it's a
nonprofits,
calling.
it's definitely a calling. It's tireless work for not a ton of money, and most people don't get into it for the money, but they get into it because they have a passion. But you go in and you don't realize how much extra work there is when there are so many other options out there for people to give up their time and give up their money.
Yes, I definitely think it's a calling, it's a passion. My reward is being able to see the difference that I'm making in individuals' lives. That's where I get the gratification and seeing that firsthand. So I started out, in fundraising just as a little program manager, and was able to work my way up to a director position. And being at the MDA is actually what brought me here to Central Florida. I was the director in Jacksonville of a small office, and then it gave me the opportunity to come and be the director here in Central Florida. So that was about 8 years ago.
I love that. And so after MDA, because what happens a lot in nonprofits especially, there's this, you get to a point where you either feel like you've capped or maxed how impactful you're being, and then there are other opportunities that come up. It doesn't mean you leave a place and don't love the organization or love the actual group that you're supporting, but you do move on. And so you obviously made a move from MDA, and what came up next?
So after MDA, I worked for Best Buddies, and they specifically work with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that kind of tied me back to elementary school, working with the ESC students and those specifically with Down syndrome and autism. So it was a great way for me to focus on helping that population and being awareness and being an advocate to showcase people, again, for their abilities, and that everybody's different. You're different, I'm different, but let's not...
I'm really different.
Let's not focus on our differences, but what kind of brings us together and what makes us, equal.
Because, we were talking earlier about, when I was trying to figure out how to do the post, about using the word disability, because a lot of people, that's what, immediately if you say disability, they know exactly what you're talking about. Someone with a disability, somebody that's quote unquote different, somebody that doesn't have what people would say is a normal ability to function in the world. And that is such a misnomer. So you and a lot of people are really working hard to get away from that specific word. We have to keep going back to it because that's how people identify. But talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so we say people first language, or not seeing someone for their disability but rather their ability. So if someone uses a wheelchair, they are not wheelchair bound, they just happen to use a wheelchair. It's just their mode of transportation. So kind of educating people on, a term that's been thrown around is unique abilities, abilities. So kind of, switching the conversation more towards that than saying, a disability.
Right, because I think what happens, disability automatically paints this picture of...
You're not able to.
Correct. You're not equal. There's this interesting inequality there when you're using that word. And just because somebody has I've heard challenge too, but challenged also has this interesting connotation to it. So I love that when you sent me your bio when we were talking about things, that you use the words abilities and inclusion, because I think that that's so important for us to begin to think like that, and if we aren't already thinking like that, to really kind of focus on the abilities, because you're right, I believe we've made so much headway in all of those areas. I mean, even 30 years ago, it was a different world for anybody who was disabled, had autism, had any kind of thing that the world looked at as differently. Mm-hmm. And we've made a lot of progress. It's not perfect, but don't you feel like we've made a lot of progress? I mean, look at what you all are doing with the Center for Independent Living.
A ton. Since the ADA Americans...
Oh, Dad's on, by the way.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, Dad.
Since 1990 when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, just giving the civil rights, to be able to have employment. And, the Center for Independent Living is all about breaking down those barriers that can step in your way of opportunities and the ability to do something. So barriers as far as maybe a communication barrier. We serve a lot of people that are deaf or hard of hearing. That could be a barrier. So, interpreters and translating. And then the physical barrier. Those that we serve that use wheelchairs. You wouldn't think about it. But right. The steps, my house has steps that go to the front door. What happens if I have a short-term disability or I'm in an accident and I get a newfound disability? How will I get in and out of my house? So those are things that the Center for Independent Living specifically helps with.
Because we take a lot for granted. We talk about it a lot on the show. We take a lot for granted. So if you can walk around all over the place, you and I can, but you're right, if you're in a wheelchair, or I had actually a Lyft driver, which I think is awesome, who was hard of hearing, but he had a special setup in the car so that he could drive and still hear, because all I thought about was, oh my God, how is he going to hear a car screeching through the intersection? I mean, those are things that you would think of, like if somebody has a hearing deficit, for example. And there's so much technology that's come along where it really is helping everybody kind of come to our world and our way of doing things and making it easier for them.
Yes, the assistive technology that's out there, and just with being able to text and all these different modifications that, whether working or driving, it's a big deal.
And how about working? So there seems to be a great push especially in Orange County and Orlando, I feel like, a great push to, this might go back to the inclusion, of finding jobs, giving those with unique abilities the opportunity to work. Talk about that, because I think a lot of people would hire, but they're uneducated about, oh my God, what am I going to have to do to change my office? What am I going to have to adjust to? How much money is that going to cost me? Give them a little background on that, because I think more people would hire if they were a little more educated.
That's great. So the Center for Independent Living, we have an employment program, and we provide supported employment. So that's those pre-employment skills trainings, resume building, cover letters, interview skills, and also educating companies that by hiring somebody with a different type of ability isn't as much of a liability or a cost that you think it's going to be. Sometimes they're very simple accommodations, whether it is a piece of equipment that actually vocational rehabilitation might be able to buy so that it's not a cost to your company. But the individuals that we work with at CIL that we're placing in jobs are some of the most dedicated workers. They want to be able to earn an income because that's going to help them become independent and not be reliant on government assistance. But the self-worth, you have a job, I have a job, that self-worth and that confidence, it's just giving them the opportunity and seeing it from a different lens to make those accommodations.
That's awesome. But John's right. Publix is huge with working with the programs, correct? Who are some of the other employers in town that seem to have come on board?
So Siemens, and Lockheed Martin, they all are great employers. There's a food chain coming. They have a few locations, but Lucky Supermarkets.
Sure, Lucky, yeah.
Yeah, they have hired some of our individuals. Amazon is definitely helping in those arenas. And
so we were talking about the Center for Independent Living. It's not an assisted living center, right? So
right.
It's behind Winter Park Village, I believe.
Yes. So on Denning and Webster, right behind Winter Park Village.
So what other services so when somebody goes there, they're not going there for residential. You're helping them become independent. You're giving them the tools, the contacts. You all are working in the community to allow them to get out, correct,
yes.
and be independent.
Exactly. So there's over 400 centers for independent living, and each one is its own 501, its own entity. And so we really work in the community to see what the need is. And we serve as information referral, so people can come to us, and whether it's affordable, accessible housing, referrals for that, our employment program, our accessibility program. We provide durable medical equipment, wheelchairs, power chairs, things like that. And then, so we really work with the individual, come up with their plan for independent living, and chip away at each roadblock, each barrier they might face, so that their goals can be met to live the most independent, accessible life that they can.
That's amazing. So how do you all get funding? You didn't ask me to ask this, but I'm curious about it. How do you get your funding? Are there federal grants, local grants? Is it all community donations? How does that work?
So it is a mix. We do rely heavily on the federal and state funding that we get, but as all nonprofits, we're trying to diversify those funds. And so we do have private dollars, whether it's corporate sponsorships, small grants and foundations. We have 2 big fundraising events that we do, so always looking to engage the community that way.
And so other than fundraising, how could someone get involved? Because I think that's what happens when we talk about programs. I didn't know about the Center for Independent Living. I knew of something that helped, but that's part of the thing of trying to get nonprofit information out there. Is there's a lot of places out there, and it's very hard to get the information disseminated to the community. You guys are obviously out there doing a fantastic job. How can somebody get involved? Obviously, cutting a check would be awesome, or donating. I'll say that, even if Brittany won't. But there's other ways to get involved. Do you have a volunteer program? Do you have an internship program?
Yes, so definitely board members, committee members. We have a volunteer program. We rely heavily on volunteers to help us build ramps for those with physical disabilities so that they can get in and out of their homes. We always need construction, contractors, home builders that can easily help us with materials and building those ramps and doing small home modifications.
Wow, I never even thought about that. So all of the construction, Lord, all of the construction we all look at every single day in our beautiful city. Imagine if those people all got involved, because I never thought about that as a need. Obviously it needs to be built, but how easy it would be them for, hey Jason, hey guys, by the way, Jason Benning's on and he says hi to you, but I'm saying hi to you back, Jason. And Damaris says hi, Brittany.
Hey Damaris.
And there's a few other people, I'm sorry I missed you. But I didn't think about that. Think of how easy that would be for a contractor, and I won't call any of my contractors out right now, but I definitely,
just tell me offline.
I will 100% tell you offline. But what an easy thing for them to do. And I don't mean like it's not some sort of commitment on their part, but that's such an easy thing to build that you just wouldn't think about. I personally wouldn't think about. I'm not in construction, but all of the things that surround the services that you provide, the people that could easily donate time and their services.
What takes a group of maybe Publix volunteers and our staff to build a 15-foot ramp, maybe 2 or 3 Saturdays, a construction company could sponsor the materials and have their crew out there and knock it out in a day.
What a beautiful thing that would be if we could. There's a lot of businesses, I feel like, that are going toward the, hey, we'll pay you, or if you will donate your time, or trying to get them to donate their time. What a great thing if some of the construction companies, and I know you have some that support you already,
yes.
But there are plenty more out there that probably don't even think about that or don't know about it. Because what you do, what all of us do in nonprofits is, it's a tireless thing, and you've got 95 different windows open where you're trying to figure out who to go to, what's the next need. Sometimes it's crisis management a lot. Even if you plan all you can possibly plan, you're still trying to figure out how to get a solution. Money is always 100% always on the minds of every nonprofit, because there are so many people in need.
Yes, but with we say the Foundations to Freedom program, and that is building the ramps, doing bathroom modifications, installing grab bars, the durable medical equipment. We have about 200 people on that waiting list, and just like you mentioned, how easy if some of those construction companies could just chip in and we could knock it out. And then, fundraising is always great, but that's our biggest need.
So your dad, Scott, hi Scott, says he's excited about the Stroll and Roll this Saturday. That must be the flyer that you have out there to talk about. So Dad's got this. He's directing the whole thing. I love it. So talk about, you have a big fundraiser coming up. You have a big event coming up on Saturday.
We do. So we have an annual walk and awareness event called the Stroll and Roll, because of a lot of our participants do use wheelchairs. And it's going to be at Crane's Roost in Altamont Springs this Saturday from 8 to 11 a.m. Hopefully the weather will be fabulous.
I hope so. I believe it will.
Yes, and just coming out for disability inclusion, celebrating everyone's abilities, supporting the Center for Independent Living. It's a Kevin said, stroll and roll.
Hey, Kevin.
Woo! It's a free event, and it's just a fun day.
That's awesome. So it's at Crane's Roost. When does it start?
So actually, check-ins 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and the actual stroll and roll will start at 9:30.
Perfect.
So if you get there a little bit late, you won't miss out on the strolling and the rolling.
What's the biggest challenge that you have trying to provide the services, other than funding? I mean, obviously funding goes to everything, but is there some organization or some group of people that you're trying to reach out to that you think could be, and you don't have to name them, we're not here to guilt anybody, but what are some of your biggest challenges that you face when you go in and you go into the office or you're trying to figure out a program to raise money for? What are some of the bigger challenges?
I think it's the awareness. There's a lot of really incredible nonprofits throughout Central Florida, and we're all doing great, incredible things, and we're also collaborating on some of these issues. But the awareness that the Center for Independent Living we're the greatest kind of kept secret, that we don't, people don't really, assisted living.
I swear to you, if I'd heard it, that's exactly what I would have thought.
Or I'm not ready to go to assisted living yet. Well, we're not a residential facility.
Right.
We want, if you've had a recent accident and have had a disability and need help with accommodations or advocating to your employer, or if it's getting accessible housing, getting a job, making your house accessible, those are all things that we can help with.
And so you probably had, the need is great. You said you had a waiting list for the ramps. I can't imagine the waiting list that you have for other things. Are there people on a waiting list to become employed?
There are. So just educating, like you mentioned, businesses and corporations, that hiring someone with a disability isn't necessarily a liability, or it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's just looking at it through a different lens and maybe providing a simple accommodation and helping us being the bridge to bridge that gap to successful employment.
So John Wild, who has his own show, That Damn Radio Show, which I love the title of that.
Cool.
He's awesome. He's going to do a shout out for you. Thank you, John, about your event. Saturday.
Thanks, John.
So we're going to post all of Brittany's content. We covered a lot today, so we're going to post the center's website. We're going to post the information about the event on Saturday. We're going to post some of Brittany's going to put together a beautiful post about all of the things that we talked about today. And if I haven't covered anything, we'll get to it at the very end, I promise. But I want you to know that we're going to provide all the information to you because I think this is so important. I think that wouldn't it be awesome if we could get more employers on board, we could get more construction people on board just by putting it out there and challenging it and sharing it across all of the TED Show platforms and all platforms that you have. But do you have any parting words of wisdom for them? Do you have anything that you want to share with them? Is there? I prepped her for this so that she didn't stare into the camera, which I've done to a couple of guests, unfortunately. But first of all, you were amazing on the show.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate it. I think your energy, you guys felt it, and that's why you got all the hearts and you got all of it. You saw all the lights go. Isn't that cool? It's instant gratification going across there. You see people are responding to what you're saying. And we talk about on the show a lot, you can't make up that kind of compassion and passion that you have for what you're doing, and I think that's the most important thing that people see when they see somebody like you on the show and talking about the Center for Independent Living and Accessibility and Inclusion. So any parting words of wisdom for them, anything that you want to share, anything that you think they should know?
Well, before I share my parting words of wisdom, and I know that Ted will share the links, but come out, if you want to learn more about CIL, come out to our Stroll and Roll this Saturday, stroll.cilorlando.org to learn more about it. You can meet me, my awesome team, and meet a lot of great people, and I'll leave you with, see people for their abilities, not their disability.
Oh, I love that. That's right. So the inclusion was important. We missed one little thing. We were going to talk about the This month they're talking about getting rid of the R word, and we have a little bit of time, and I would love to talk about that. So I'll let you take that, and I'll give you my 2 cents.
So I used to work for another wonderful nonprofit called Best Buddies, and they partner with Special Olympics. But this month is Spread the Word to End the Word, and that's by not using the R word, which I will use it because I'm going to educate you. Don't use the word retarded. It's not nice. It's not appropriate. And Ted was just saying it's just about education.
It is.
And so spread the word to end the word. Don't say the R word. And that's a great piece to leave with you, leave the audience with as well.
Yeah, I think that it's so important because you don't understand if you're at, I hear this word a lot, which is interesting still in this day and age, but it goes back to education. You could be at a restaurant or at a group, you're at the next table and you hear that word and I cringe because I could be with someone who has somebody who's got unique abilities or might have some mental challenges or physical challenges, and you cringe, and I know the person that says it, and I would never embarrass them in front of anyone, but I usually try to take them inside and go, you don't understand, the person I was sitting with has X, Y, and Z, or their son does, or their parent, or their brother or sister, and they cringe too. And I think it's just a matter of continuing to educate people that is just not a nice word.
Yeah.
It's not a nice word. I know it was part of the vernacular for so long, but we're changing a lot of the lingo and a lot of the vernacular in our world to try to make it more positive, and that is definitely one way. So this whole month, I guess March, say what the thing is again.
Spread the word to end the word.
To end the word. All right, so we're not going to use that word anymore. You've been a joy, everybody who's been on here. Thank you, Willow, for that. So uplifting and so necessary what you do. That's to you.
Oh, thank you, Willow.
So thank you so much, Brittany. I'm so very excited about what you do, and I definitely want to do more to help you bring awareness and get some more employers and some more contractors that I know on board. And so let's educate people and get them out to support the Center for Independent Living and Stroll and Roll on Saturday. We love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a great show. Great energy. I mean, I could have just let you and your dad and Kevin maybe talk, and I would have been fine sitting back and listening. But we love you. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dad.
Come on.